He bent, braced, and lifted her gently into his arms. Gasps sliced the room. "Put her down," a guard barked. Phones rose, red lights blinked. And then Graham West turned. The billionaire CEO. His voice was cold enough to freeze glass. "Who told you to touch my child?" The hall recoiled, but Marcus climbed. One step, then another. "Last warning," Graham thundered. The orchestra stopped. The chandeliers seemed to lean in. Marcus shifted his grip and kept going. Past the rope, past the cameras, into forbidden ground. No one knew what would happen next. This is Black Stories, where the pain of prejudice is told and justice always finds its voice. If you believe strength isn't measured in status but in dignity, tap like so more people see this story. If you've ever been told to stay in your place, subscribe, because every week we bring you stories where the overlooked rise and the world has no choice but to see them. Marcus Brooks wasn't born to marble steps or chandeliers. He was born on cracked sidewalks, where streetlights flickered, and names like his never showed up on scholarships lists. He was the kid teachers dismissed with a sigh. The one counselors told to be realistic. Architecture brochures stayed pinned on his bedroom wall, but his applications came back stamped with polite rejections. Or no answer at all. He learned early. Brilliance on paper doesn't weigh much when the world sees only the color of your skin, your zip code, and your uniform. Marcus could draw entire skylines from memory. Towers, bridges, courtyards, all mapped in his notebooks. His mother used to trace the lines with her finger and whisper, "You build the world they won't let you in." She worked double shifts in a hospital kitchen, and Marcus promised he'd take care of her one day. But life had a way of cashing promises before they matured. She fell ill. Bills stacked higher than his sketches. Marcus left college applications unopened, pulled on a cap, and took the first job that paid, opening doors for people who didn't look at him. He became a doorman, not by dream, by necessity. And yet, he wore the uniform with dignity, gloves always polished, shoes always shining. His mother had taught him, even if the world refuses to see you, never refuse to see yourself. But there were wounds, deep ones. The stares that sliced when he walked into luxury spaces. The jokes whispered too loudly. He must have gotten lost. The Times security followed him in stores while he was off duty, still in uniform. He carried all of it quietly. He folded it, tucked it into his chest, and kept moving. Then came Sophie, the billionaire's daughter. 10 years old, a small body meeting a world not built for her bones. Some called it disability. Marcus called it courage, because every morning, before the parties, before the cameras, he saw her at the edge of the building, watching pigeons take flight. Her wheelchair locked, her eyes restless. Other staff treated her like fragile porcelain. Marcus treated her like human fire. He bent down once, voice steady. "You're stronger than they think." And she smiled. The kind of smile that made him think of his mother's hospital nights, of battles fought quietly and won loudly. Sophie started talking to him more. She told him about the books she read, the stares she hated, the way other kids whispered when she entered a room. Marcus understood, more than she knew. 2 lives, worlds apart, tied by the same rope of being underestimated. He carried her once when her chair jammed in the lobby, light as a feather, but heavy with meaning. He remembered how she whispered, "Don't let them stare." And he answered, "Let them. They'll learn." In Marcus, Sophie found not just a doorman, but a defender. In Sophie, Marcus found not just a child, but a mirror. Both had been told, by different voices, different systems, that they didn't belong in certain rooms. Both carried wounds invisible to the glittering world around them. And both, somehow, were waiting for the moment those wounds would turn into strength. That moment was coming. Faster than anyone in that ballroom knew. The Sterling Plaza ballroom was built to intimidate. Gold leaf ceilings, crystal chandeliers heavy as gilt, tables lined with nameplates of the city's most powerful men and women. It wasn't just a party. It was a parade of power. And at the door, Marcus Brooks. He stood in his pressed uniform, shoulders square, cap angled just so. He looked invisible, and that was the point. Guests passed him like furniture, murmuring, "Thank you," without ever looking at his face. One man tossed his coat into Marcus's arms without slowing. "Careful. That's Italian suede." He didn't wait for a reply. Another guest eyed Marcus's gloved hands, then whispered too loudly, "Funny how they let anyone in a uniform work here." His date laughed, the sound sharp as glass. Marcus said nothing. He had learned silence was safer, but his jaw tightened just enough for Sophie to notice. She was across the room, in her chair beside her father. Sophie's eyes, bright, restless, flicked from her father's booming laughter to Marcus's quiet posture. She saw the difference. She felt it. But Graham West didn't. The billionaire CEO was in his element. He held court at the center table, cufflinks catching the light like small suns. His laugh was too loud, his handshake too firm. He introduced Sophie only when cameras swung his way, angling her wheelchair so the flashbulbs caught her face. To him, she wasn't his daughter tonight. She was his proof. His "look at me" story. The vulnerable child he could parade to soften his edges. Sophie knew it. She hated it. Her small hands gripped the arms of her chair, white-knuckled. She wanted someone, anyone, to treat her like more than a fragile prop. She found Marcus's eyes instead. And Marcus, though he said nothing, gave the slightest nod. As if to say, "I see you. I know." The orchestra swelled. Guests clinked glasses. Waiters floated between tables. But under the music, there was a hum of hierarchy, a rhythm of exclusion. Marcus felt it every second. A security guard checked his badge twice in the hallway, though everyone else in uniform walked past unbothered. A woman recoiled when he brushed too close with her coat, muttering, "Don't scuff the pearls." Each slight was small. Together they were a wall. Marcus carried them like bricks on his back. And the staircase, gleaming marble right in the center of the hall, was the sharpest brick of all. It was where the stage stood, elevated for speeches and photo ops. The line between servers and served. No uniform crossed it. No guest questioned it. Marcus glanced at those steps once, and quickly looked away. He knew the rule. The whole ballroom knew the rule. But Sophie's chair was angled toward them. Her father was already climbing with his entourage, leaving her stranded in the crowd. She shifted, anxious. Marcus noticed. He always noticed. And in that moment, something quiet clicked. The steps weren't just stone. They were a barrier, a test, the kind of test Marcus had spent his whole life failing. The kind of test Sophie faced every day she tried to move through a world built without her in mind. Two people, two different wounds, the same wall in front of them. Neither of them knew it yet, but that staircase was about to become the battlefield. The elevator panel flashed red. Sophie's wheelchair wouldn't move. For a moment, the gala pretended not to notice. The music played on. Laughter filled the corners. Forks scraped china. But Sophie's hands trembled on the controls, her lips pressed tight. She looked around, pleading for help. Her father didn't stop. Graham West was already halfway up the marble stairs, cufflinks flashing, voice booming through the microphone. "Tonight, we celebrate progress." He didn't look back. A handler leaned down. "Stay put." "We'll fix it." Then vanished into the crowd. Sophie was stranded, alone, and that's when Marcus stepped forward. Cap straight, gloves spotless, eyes steady. He crouched by her chair, fingers searching for a release lever. Nothing. Jammed solid. Sophie's breath hitched. The room buzzed with whispers. "What's he doing?" one guest hissed. "Out of line," muttered another. "Don't touch her," a woman snapped, clutching her pearls. Cameras swung, phones rose. The spectacle had begun. Marcus met Sophie's eyes. Quiet. Firm. "Is it okay if I carry you?" Sophie nodded, breath hitching. "Please." And with one motion he lifted her into his arms. The air cracked. Gasps shot across the room like sparks. "Put her down!" a waiter barked, rushing toward him. His tray rattled, glasses spilling champagne onto the marble. Marcus climbed one step. Two, his jaw tight, his hold steady. Sophie's small arms wrapped around his neck, face buried against his collar. She whispered through trembling lips, "Don't let them stare." Marcus adjusted his grip. "Let them." The crowd erupted in a low chorus. Murmurs, laughter, judgment. Unbelievable. Risking his job for attention. Doorman or babysitter? Someone snapped a photo. The flash burst like lightning. But Marcus didn't flinch. Every step up the staircase was defiance. Every muscle carried more than a child. It carried history. "Stop him!" another voice barked. Security shifted, but the crowd pressed forward, phones raised. No one stopped Marcus. They only watched. He was no longer invisible. He was a show. And then Graham turned. His laughter cut off mid-sentence. His face darkened. He raised the microphone, voice booming over the silence. "Who told you to touch my daughter?" The ballroom froze. The music died. The quartet lowered their bows. The chandeliers seemed to dim. Marcus kept climbing, step after step, his chest heaving, but his grip unshaken. "Last warning," Graham thundered, finger stabbing the air like a gavel. "Put her down." Now. Guests leaned in, breath held, phones zoomed tighter. Every lens was hungry for the moment the doorman broke. Sophie stirred. Her voice cracked, small but clear. "Please. Don't put me down." A hush fell. The words hit harder than any order. Marcus's eyes burned, but he said nothing. He shifted her higher in his arms, took another step. The staircase wasn't stone anymore. It was judgment, and every camera caught the climb. The room thought they would break him, but Marcus kept going, and no one knew what would happen next. Marcus's gloves tightened, his muscles ached, but he didn't stop. Every step up the marble staircase felt heavier, not because of Sophie's weight, but because of the eyes. Hundreds of them, wealthy, polished, waiting for him to stumble. The whispers grew sharper. "He'll drop her. This is madness. Security should have dragged him out already." But Sophie clung tighter, her cheek pressed against his shoulder. "Don't stop," she whispered. Those words carried Marcus back. Back to nights in a cramped apartment, his mother bent over hospital pay stubs, coughing between shifts. Back to when he was 12, sketching bridges in a notebook while kids mocked him. "Architect? Please, you'll be lucky to hold a broom." Back to the day he carried his mother up 4 flights of stairs when the elevator broke. Her frail body trembling, her voice steady in his ear. Strength isn't in your arms, Marcus. It's in your choices. He chose then. He chose now. Step, step, step. The crowd's disbelief turned restless. Phones shook in hands. A man in a tux muttered, "How's he so steady?" Because Marcus knew balance. Years of holding doors, standing still in rainstorms, bracing against wind, teaching his body patience. Invisible training, quiet strength. And now it was undeniable. Sophie lifted her head, eyes glistening. She saw what no one else had ever seen. The man who looked powerless was anything but. The room leaned forward, hungry for a fall, for a mistake, for spectacle. But Marcus didn't falter. His steps were precise, almost rehearsed. Like he had been carrying more than bodies all his life. Carrying silence, carrying stares, carrying the weight of being told he didn't belong. And tonight, he carried it into the spotlight. "Stop!" Graham's voice cracked like a whip. His face flushed red, fury mixing with fear. "That man is trespassing!" Security. 2 guards advanced. But the crowd shifted too, phones raised, voices rising. "Wait, look at him!" "He's not dropping her. She trusts him." The tide wavered, authority against truth. Marcus reached the halfway mark. Sophie lifted her head, her voice shaking but audible. "He's helping me." "Why can't you see that?" Gasps. Murmurs. Some guests lowered their phones, shame flickering across their faces. Because a child's plea cut deeper than any uniform. Graham froze. Just for a second. His daughter's words hung in the air, undeniable. Marcus's mind flashed again, his mother's final night, her whisper as he held her frail body close. "One day, Marcus, the world will see what I already know. You are more than their doors. Tonight was that day." Step, step. The final stretch loomed. Lights blazed hotter. Every camera lens zoomed. Marcus's breathing slowed, but his resolve sharpened. He wasn't just carrying Sophie anymore. He was carrying proof. Proof that dignity couldn't be dressed down. Proof that strength didn't need status. The crowd's disbelief was shifting into awe, into fear, into silence. The doorman was becoming something else, and everyone could feel it. He was almost at the top, and the next step would change everything. Marcus was 3 steps from the top. 3 steps from setting Sophie safely down beside the stage. The crowd held its breath. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the click, click, click of cameras. And then, authority struck. "Enough!" Graham's voice cracked like a gavel. He dropped the microphone, storming down 2 steps to meet Marcus head-on. His suit gleamed, his cufflinks blazed, but his eyes burned with something colder than fury. Fear. "This man is out of line." "Security! Now!" 2 guards rushed forward. Heavy, broad-shouldered uniforms pressed. They moved with the certainty of men who'd done this before. Remove the problem, restore the order. Marcus froze. He couldn't put Sophie down. Not halfway up. Not while she whispered against his collar. "Don't let them take me." The guards closed in, hands outstretched. Gasps rippled. Phones zoomed closer. "Sir, step away from the child," one barked. His hand hovered inches from Sophie's arm. Marcus turned his body, shielding her. His jaw locked. His voice low, steady. "She's not safe down there." "Let me finish." The ballroom erupted. He's right. Look at her face. Doesn't matter. He broke protocol. Since when is helping a child a crime? but Graham thundered over them all. "You think you can disobey me? In my building?" He pointed, shaking with rage. "Arrest him!" The words sliced through the room. Arrest! A doorman in uniform. A black man with a child in his arms. The crowd recoiled. Some lowered their phones, shame flickering. Others lifted higher, desperate to capture the downfall. Marcus's mind flashed to years past, being shoved against a wall by officers who mistook his keys for a weapon. Being questioned in stores for looking suspicious. The familiar sting of being guilty for existing. And now it was happening again. Only this time, he wasn't alone. Sophie's voice cracked through the tension. "Stop! He's helping me!" Her words echoed, high and trembling through the speakers Graham had dropped on the stage. Her cry was amplified. No one could ignore it. The guards hesitated. The crowd rippled. Sophie spoke again, this time more assertive. "He's carrying me because you never would." But Graham doubled down, face crimson. "She doesn't know what she's saying." "She's frightened. This man is manipulating her." A hiss spread through the guests. Disbelief, anger. Some murmured, "He's lying." Others whispered, "I can't watch this." Marcus's arms tightened around Sophie. He took another step upward, slow and deliberate. His silence was louder than Graham's rage. One guard grabbed his sleeve. Gasps erupted. Marcus stopped. He turned his head slowly, eyes meeting the man's. Calm. Unflinching. And for a heartbeat, the guard faltered. Because in Marcus's face wasn't arrogance, it was truth. Unshakable, earned, undeniable. The ballroom teetered on the edge of chaos. Cameras trembled, voices rose. The guards hovered, torn between orders and conscience. Authority had drawn its line. But truth was breaking through. And the next moment would decide everything. The ballroom was a storm. Authority on one side, truth on the other. And Marcus, frozen in the middle, Sophie clutched tight. "Arrest him!" Graham barked again, his face flushed crimson, his suit straining against his fury. The guards stepped closer, their hesitation thinning. But then, another voice. "Wait!" It came from the back of the hall. Quiet, steady. A woman's voice, every head turned. It was Clara Ortiz, the event's lead reporter. Her camera hung at her side, still recording. She stepped forward, her heels clicking against marble. "He's not endangering her. He's saving her." Gasps spread. Other reporters, already filming, angled closer. The red lights on their cameras multiplied, blinking like signals. One guard froze. "Ma'am, please." But Clara cut him off. "It's live streaming." She raised her phone, screen glowing, thousands already watching. Comment bubbles scrolled. "Why is the father yelling?" "That man is protecting her." "Look at the child's face. She trusts him." The ballroom shifted. Whispers sharpened into voices. "She's right. This doesn't look right." "Graham's overreacting. That man, he's steady. He's not afraid." Graham's jaw clenched. "Turn that off." Now. But it was too late. The clip was viral before it even ended. Guests texted. Staff filmed. The walls of the ballroom couldn't contain it anymore. Marcus climbed another step. Sophie lifted her head, cheeks streaked with tears. Her voice, amplified by dropped microphones, carried through the hall. "He's my friend." The crowd gasped. A billionaire's daughter calling a doorman her friend. Authority cracked. But there was more. Because Clara wasn't finished. She raised her voice higher. You don't know who you're yelling at, Graham. The room stiffened. Graham's face drained. What are you talking about? Clara turned, her voice crisp, echoing through the chandeliers. Marcus Brooks, top of his class in architectural design, won the city's youth competition at 17, offered a scholarship, denied because of budget cuts and politics. She looked straight at Graham. You know who signed that rejection? Your firm. West Development. The ballroom erupted. Gasps, murmurs, shock. Phones zoomed tighter, eager to capture Graham's face. Marcus froze mid-step, the revelation hitting harder than the cameras. He hadn't spoken of it in years, but Clara had receipts. She held up her phone. An article from years ago. Local prodigy denied scholarship despite winning contest. Beside it, a photo. Marcus, younger, standing proudly with his sketches. Guests whispered furiously, "Is that really him? He designed that bridge downtown? And he's been opening doors all this time?" The tide shifted. Wealthy heads turned not at Graham, but at Marcus. The doorman was no longer invisible, and Sophie, still in his arms, looked up at him differently, not just with gratitude, with awe. The system's mask was slipping. Graham's power, built on control, was crumbling in real time. Phones flashed, voices rose, truth spread. And suddenly, it wasn't Marcus on trial anymore. It was Graham West. The ballroom erupted. Gasps collided with whispers. Whispers turned into shouts. Cameras zoomed, flashes popped, live streams poured into the world beyond those walls. Is it true? He designed those sketches, and Graham denied him? The tide was no longer silent. It was a wave, surging against authority. Marcus stood on the final step. Sophie still in his arms, safe, steady. The chandeliers above burned brighter than ever, illuminating not Graham's stage, but Marcus's climb. And then the chaos split. One half surged toward Marcus. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then louder, sharper, undeniable. Guests stood, clapping in rhythm, a defiant soundtrack against silence. The other half turned on Graham. "Answer her!" someone shouted. "You denied him. Why?" another barked. "Why humiliate a man who saved your daughter?" The CEO's face twisted. He raised a trembling hand. "Enough. This is manipulation. He's nothing more than—" But his words drowned beneath the crowd, because Clara had raised her phone higher. The livestream comments were roaring now. Screens all across the ballroom lit up. "Protect Marcus. Fire Graham. This is injustice in real time." The truth was viral, and Graham couldn't claw it back. He lunged for the mic, desperate to regain control. "This man is a fraud. He dash." Then Sophie's voice cut through, soft but amplified by the room's silence. "He's the only one who saw me." Her words hung, fragile and heavy, over the hall. Graham froze. The crowd did not. A donor near the front slammed his palm on the table. She trusts him more than her own father. What does that tell you? The chaos swelled. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. Some guests stormed out, unwilling to watch a billionaire unravel. Others crowded closer, phones high, hungry for accountability. Marcus said nothing. His silence was louder than Graham's fury. He walked the last step. "Ready?" he whispered. "Ready," she said. He set Sophie gently on the stage, adjusted her chair so she faced the cameras, not as a prop, but as a person. She lifted her chin. Brave. Seen. The applause thundered. And then the board members arrived, suits sharp, faces pale. They had been watching from the wings. They whispered to each other, their eyes darting between Marcus, Sophie, and Graham. One stepped forward. "Mr. West, the board is launching an independent review of your conduct. Effective immediately, you are stepping back from your role until the findings are complete." "An outside firm will conduct the inquiry," he added. The ballroom gasped. Graham sputtered, veins bulging. "You can't, this is my company." But the board member shook his head. "Not anymore. Not tonight. Not after this." The cameras devoured every second. And then, the reversal. The same spotlight that humiliated Marcus now crowned him. Guests surged forward, shaking his hand, clapping his back, thanking him. A young musician pressed a napkin toward him. "Please, sign this." But Marcus didn't gloat. He only bowed his head, eyes damp. "This was never about me," he said quietly. "It's about seeing what's been invisible too long." Sophie reached for his hand. "Not invisible anymore." The hall erupted. Applause, tears, a standing ovation that shook the chandeliers. And the rebuild began. And Graham? He disappeared from the front page. His empire cracked under the weight of silence, shame, and accountability. But Marcus remained. Not with a crown, not with arrogance, with something stronger, respect. The night began with silence, a doorman invisible, a child ignored. It ended with thunder. A man once dismissed as background became the center of truth. A girl once treated as fragile became the loudest voice in the room. They mocked him for crossing a line. But crossing that line forced the world to see what it had tried to erase. Strength isn't status. Dignity isn't wealth. And sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one everyone overlooks, until they have no choice but to pay attention. Marcus didn't win by shouting. He won by carrying what mattered most. And in doing so, he carried us all a little closer to justice. So if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been told to stay in your place, let this story remind you, the climb may be steep, but every step shakes the system. And when you finally reach the top, the world can never pretend it didn't see you. This is Black Stories. If this story moved you, like this video and share it. Subscribe for more, because these stories matter, and so do you.
Años exactamente, bueno, no exactamente, ¿no? Un grupo de soñadores en La Paz decidió fundar algo que trascendería generaciones. El glorioso Club Bolívar. No imaginaron que... Oye, me he esforzado al hacer el discurso. ¿Qué ponen ZZ, chat? Basta, me he esforzado, se los juro que me he esforzado, bro, basta. Por favor, me he esforzado en el discurso, respétenme un poquito, chat. Bueno, igual lo voy a leer, me la chupan, la verdad. Chat, nefastos. Son unos envidiosos, ¿saben? Son unos envidiosos. ¿En qué me quedé? No imaginaron que ese nombre se convertiría en un sinónimo de grandeza, lucha y de orgullo nacional. 101 años después, Bolívar no es solo un club. Es un sentimiento que se hereda, que se sufre y se celebra. Últimamente sufrimos mucho por Robato, ¿no? Es el latido de miles de hinchas que en cada victoria y en cada caída nunca abandonan, ¿verdad? Nomás. Porque ser celeste no es una elección, es una forma de vivir. Muy bien, qué lindo, un aplauso. ¡Bravo, bravo! Muchachos, tremendo discurso. Buenas noches, Dieguito, ¿cómo estás? Por lo menos ponte tu chompita, pues, un busito para leer el discurso. A ver, cállate, Gabo, ¿vos quieres ser baneado? Este discurso lo he hecho en mi cama, pensando en lo que es ser bolivarista, la verdad. Un aplauso, por favor, y con ayuda también del gran ChatGPT. Un aplauso para ChatGPT. Ah, ¿cuál era la finalización de un ratito? Dice... que estos 101 años sean solo el comienzo de muchas más llenos de alegría. Felicidades, Academia. Felicidades, Bolívar. ¡Bravo! Aplausos para ChatGPT, muchachos. Para vos no, dice. Buenas noches, muchachos, ¿cómo están? Gracias por estar aquí, perdón por prender tan tarde. La verdad estaba viendo mi serie, estaba viendo el regreso de Justin Bieber. Toda la tarde me vi fútbol, hasta vi el partido del Tigre. Vi el partido de River, vi el partido de Oriente, las declaraciones de Martins, tremendo lo de Martins, bebé, le tiró palo a Villegas, pero bien tirado. Huevada, en su cama lo hizo todo pajeado pensando en el... No, ¿qué dice este Arielito? Oye, ¿quiénes vamos, no? Mi sobrino de quién redacta mejor. Dile eso a ChatGPT, yo no he redactado. ¿Qué me estás molestando a mí? Felicidades. Qué pasado. Pues la verdad nomás. ¿Qué quieren que les diga? A ver, ¿qué les puedo decir, muchachos? Yo no publiqué nada en mi página, la verdad no hice nada estos días. Han sido momentos difíciles. Bien triste, ¿no? Mentira. Pero no, muchachos, bueno. Quiero felicitar a todos los que son bolivaristas y hoy en día más que nunca, ¿no? Que es difícil ser bolivarista en el sentido de todo el contexto que estamos pasando con el técnico. Pero si lo ven por el otro lado también hay que sentirnos orgullosos porque hemos llegado a estos 101 años. Creo que como la institución mejor parada, tanto económicamente, futbolísticamente y dirigencialmente diría, pero no, creo que no, ahí nos falta, ¿no? Ese eslabón para poder ser una institución sólida. Y como ayer creo que lo decía Dardo Gómez en su publicación en el Cholet, que Dios mío, ¿de dónde cagan tanta plata, bebés? Más fuegos pirotécnicos que en el aniversario de La Paz, no mames. Tremendo, felicidades a los del Cholet y a ver si pasan pues algunos moneys. No mentira. Que dijo que el dirigente tiene que estar siempre al lado del hincha. Y eso es mucha verdad. Y no es por darle palo a Claure, porque él tendrá sus funciones, las cosas que tienen que hacer. Pero creo que por esa parte que estoy... Uy, ¿qué? No, todavía no va a arrancar la fiesta, Tucán, tranquilo. y por esa parte creo que está bien, ¿no? Está bien. Y bueno, se vienen unas futuras elecciones donde el principal candidato es Dardo Gómez a seguir manejando lo que es este club tan bonito que es Bolívar, ¿no? Por detrás, obviamente, yo creo que tiene que haber gente que lo asesore. Espera, ¿mi gatita se ha hecho pipí? No, ya, más bien. Me ha asustado, chicos, la verdad, me ha asustado. Ya saben ustedes, rayada está mi gatita últimamente, ¿no? No, ¿qué dice este Eddie Pox? Y bueno, muchachos, nos espera, creo, un futuro grandioso. Yo lo dije, creo que esta es una oportunidad ya con el Stadium de una vez establecernos como un club de fútbol, pero serio y fuera de ser autosostenible, que se proyecte a más, ¿me entiendes? No estancarnos en solo ser un club boliviano, sino ya empezar a soñar con, no sé, a ver, por ejemplo, la venta de butacas en el estadio, venta de marketing, merchandising, que se vaya ampliando más las sociedades, ¿me entienden? O sea, yo creo que si una cabeza maneja bien todo eso, creo que podemos despegar, ¿me entiendes? Y no estar ahí creando leyes de mierda con el gobierno, pidiendo perdón para que nos perdonen los impuestos, ¿no? Los gatos, ¿no? Entonces, creo que, o ser un club que está a punto de desaparecer, como Wilstermann, que desapareció de la liga, pero está a punto de desaparecer, pero absolutamente de todo el fútbol. O ser clubes que le están mangueando el auspicio a la UTV, y chupándosela al presidente de la federación por subsistir. Entonces creo que Bolívar es muy grande y tiene, creo que, trascender. Eso es lo que nos falta, trascender, dar ese pasito para trascender y lograr los objetivos que siempre hemos querido, ya sea una Copa Sudamericana o una Copa Libertadores, ¿no? Y siempre tiene que ir de la mano. Estos últimos años, creo que es la verdad, se han ido alejando a las generaciones bolivaristas, al hincha común, al hincha fanático, a todos los tipos de hinchas se han ido alejando del club por justamente el mal trabajo que se ha ido realizando estos últimos años en Bolívar. ¿Qué decía Valdivia? Creo que dijo que dejó un club autosostenible. O sea, sí, no vamos a decir que no. Económicamente creo que se dejó un club autosostenible. A ver, Solís, no pidas Gartic, ya les he dicho qué cosa de Gartic. Hoy día es aniversario del club, déjame hablar a ver de mi club, Solís. Igual en el grupo de WhatsApp, no, Tucán, jugaremos Gartic. No quiero dibujar huevadas, déjame, no voy a jugar Gartic. Ya les he dicho, si quieren dibujar, agarren un cuadernito y empiezan a dibujar sus huevadas. No me vengan a molestar a mí con su Gartic. Saludos, Reyisita, ¿cómo estás? ¿Todo bien? Gartic, temática Bolívar. No, métanse su Gartic por el poto, ya les he dicho. Y bueno, muchachos, ¿en qué estaba? Es que me enerva, muchachos, cada vez Gartic. Basta, no quiero jugar Gartic. Vayan a jugar Gartic con sus minas. Goclingo, huevadas hablas. Ya, espera, ¿qué habla este Ignacio Loza? Este Auri. Y bueno, muchachos, creo que sí, yo me quedo con eso. Este martes tenemos un partido muy importante en lo económico. Para mí, muy importante para ver qué está el club de cara a este año, porque creo que es indispensable ganarle a ese equipo. En Copa Libertadores, obviamente por los 3 puntos y más. Pero pensando a futuro, creo que es muy importante que se vea buen fútbol, ¿no? Y que la gente ya esté un poquito más tranquila con el funcionamiento del equipo. Ayer contra Bebé, bueno, el día sábado contra Bebé, se jugó un buen partido, no digo que un malo partido. Creo que empezaron a aparecer personas, o bueno, jugadores que no estaban apareciendo, como es el Papu Velázquez y muchos más, ¿no? Entonces, interesante. Y bueno, apareció Cauterucho, que en el partido de Libertadores no había aparecido ni de sombra. Parece que Cauterucho solo le mete goles a equipos como ABB. Y preocupa un poquito eso, ¿no? Hoy ganó el Tigre, está puntero con nosotros. Nacional Potosí también está compartiendo la punta con nosotros y muchos más que vienen bien entonándose en lo que es este torneo, ¿no? Que empezó retardísimo y creo que nos va a pesar no solo a nosotros, sino a los demás equipos que están participando en copas internacionales, ya sea Blooming el caso, ¿no? Y otros más. Mete gol equipos chicos como Dorni, pero Dorni ni jugó. ¿Qué dicen, chicos? ¿Qué dicen? La era Robato es la peor de todos los tiempos, bebé. Tomando en cuenta el centenario que es una vez en la vida. Sí, es la peor. La peor. De los últimos 10 años, ¿se podría decir que lo de Robato es lo peor que nos pudo pasar? A ver, piensen. Es que con lo que me dice el técnico de... A ver, ustedes pónganse a pensar. Si tu técnico te dice que el objetivo era solo clasificar a Libertadores y que no estaba obligado a ser campeón, puta, ahí me la bajó mal, amigos. Sinceramente, me la bajó mal. Podía aceptarle todas sus huevadas y todo, pero cuando dijo eso, es como que hizo sentir me hizo sentir un club más del montón, ¿me entiendes? Un Nacional Potosí, una Aurora, no sé, otros equipos bien X. Así me hizo sentir, la verdad. Por eso yo vuelvo a repetir, yo voy a hablar de lo que veo en la cancha, y este martes si es que Bolívar gana se va a aplaudir, y si es que Bolívar pierde, bueno, también se va a criticar algunas cosas, y si han fallado algunas cosas, igual vamos a criticarlas, vamos a observarlas y vamos a